The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NFL Big 3 in 30. The 3 biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NFL Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NFL.
Trevon Diggs is getting closer to returning to the field.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast.
We got a Trevon Diggs update. Brian Schottenheimer said that it's going well. All signs are positive. He said, I got a chance to talk to Trevon last week. He's down in Miami doing some training. No timeline for his return, but he had to come back a couple of weeks ago to get checked out by the doc. It sounds like he's progressing well. Where are we at in this rehab?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think, usually the way we are kind of marking the time in these rehabs are obviously the time since the injury, but also kind of where he is in the Britt Brown process, right? Like, is he on the cords yet, or is he still working on the sides? And since he's not part of this rehab group, and we're not getting kind of shots or ideas of that, it's hard to know, right? He's been down in Miami. He's working with this Dr. Reef guy that I think his brother also was working with, recovering his ACL. And he came back. Steven came back. Stefan, sorry, he came back. Like a month or two earlier than I think he was.
Well, Trevon Diggs is already running routes and OTAs with the team.
Yeah, so I mean, it does look like they're clearly getting some work done while they're there, and they were working out together. He released a video today where he was doing some ladder drills. It sounds like, according to what was on the tweet, that they were doing some limited, kind of low contact, position drills. So I mean, this is all good progress, right? Like, and it kind of puts him in line to attempt to try to be back for week one, but obviously we're still a long ways away from that. And definitely it's harder to kind of gauge this without getting the kind of telltale signs that we usually get from him being in part of the Britt Brown rehab group.
All this just seems so weird with Trevon Diggs, because we've just had so many different thoughts. Like, it's pretty clear, like the Joneses weren't happy with his rehab last year. But it sounds like Brian Schottenheimer is pleased where he's at right now. It seems like he's taking this a little bit more serious than he did last year. But there's also a part of this that we got a tweet from Todd Archer from ESPN that says Diggs is in danger of losing $500,000 in base salary because he hasn't attended off-season workouts with the Cowboys. Now, obviously, he wasn't going to be able to attend anyways because he's injured, but I think if he would have just shown up or rehabbed at the Star, he would have earned that money. I'm fascinated to know why Trevon is willing to turn down $500,000 to not rehab in Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of the interesting thing. And I think some people were reading this as like, indictment on the Cowboys, but it's like, I mean, that's the contract that he signed. So why didn't he show up for any of that? That was completely optional for him, and optional with the one of the options including $500,000 in cash.
I would be ready to be for $500,000. Like, don't worry.
Fair. That's fair. That's a fair take to have. I think it's a lot of this is kind of baffling. It feels like there's an adversarial relationship right now that's going on,
right?
But I don't really know why. Like, maybe I think Trevon could be a little upset with the idea that is kind of out there in the zeitgeist that maybe the Joneses weren't happy with the way he attacked his recovery. But I don't really feel like it was that big of a deal. And I do feel like, look, there may be something to the idea that he didn't work hard enough to kind of fully recover, and that may have contributed to why he re-injured the knee. So I think there is something to this, but I can't really tell what it is. It does feel like there's some anger there, or there's between the two sides, but like, it seems to be happening all behind the scenes, and this is kind of pot shot taking through the media.
Yeah, so we still don't know when Trevon's going to be on the field. I think it's fair to expect him to be on the PUP list, meaning that he's going to miss probably the first month of the season. I don't think the Cowboys are going to rush this. I think they want him whenever he comes back to be 100%. So I still think I think we'll see him on the field before Halloween, and I think anything before that is an added bonus.
Yeah, I think the what you're shooting for, shoot for the stars is trying to not be on start the season on PUP. I don't know if he's going to make that or not. We'll see. More than likely, they'll be more cautious than anything, like you said. And I think if in that case, Halloween feels like a very realistic goal for this.
All right, we got some other cornerback news from Cowboys OTA. Let's start with Israel Makambo, a player that we've liked for a while, who the Cowboys decided to bring back. Playing out wide as a corner, playing in the slot, playing all over.
Yeah.
It feels like this is, I mean, I'm hoping finally the year that they unleash Izzy Makambo.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a guy obviously every dayers know how we feel about Izzy McConnell.
Yeah.
We've been talking about him for years, right? So I do like that they're kind of giving him an opportunity to play more outside, especially in a more zone heavy scheme where he's going to be able to play with the boundary, run up and down the sideline, not have to chase guys across formations. Everyone kind of forgets that he was an outside corner in college. That's what he transitioned from, a boundary corner to inside to play safety. So this is kind of him returning home in a lot of ways. I think that there's reasons that he didn't come into the league as an outside corner, because I think you probably play him there with very limited capacity and what the coverages you may be using. But I think that he's certainly worth taking a look at, just to see what you've got, especially on kind of assembling a game day roster, just to know what you've got in the defensive backs and who can play where. And I think it gives them more flexibility if, there's an injury on the game day. So, and right now you haven't really got the kind of nickel situations solved, and they're throwing a lot of bodies at the problem just to see who can kind of handle it. So, I like that also includes getting Izzy some snaps, maybe outside where he wouldn't normally be getting snaps.
Couple other cornerback things. Kalen Carson, the Cowboys rookie from last year, who actually started week 1 against Cleveland. He's been dealing with a shoulder injury. He had offseason surgery, not quite out on the field yet, but I think the belief is that he'll be ready by the time we get to training camp. He might even be ready to do some stuff on the field in mini camp next week, but he's getting close.
Yeah, I think this is a really important one, because it just kind of helps set a floor. I mean, I thought he really gave you some good reps early in the season, especially that first week. He really played some good football for a rookie coming in, starting in week 1. And we saw a lot of really great stuff from him in training camp. So I do feel like he took his serious lumps in the middle of the season, but that he's also the kind of guy that would take that and internalize that. He battled like a veteran last year during training camp. I can imagine that also means he's going to attack this rehab and get better at playing his position coming in. I wouldn't even be shocked to see him be a guy that's in the mix for some of these slot snaps when he comes back potentially.
No.
So I think, look, he's a guy that maybe he's not someone in contention for those starting 3 spots, but if he could come in and play at a level that you kind of hoped that you saw at training camp last year, he could be a very valuable backup. Him and Elam, once you get healthy.
What another nice day it seems like at OTAs. Yep.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a sec for sure, because I think him and would be a nice floor. And Elam, let's go ahead and talk about Elam, right? Like, again, coming in there, getting another pass breakup. It seems like every single open practice with the media, he's gotten a pass breakup against somebody, like Pickens or CD, So, again, like, it's about like snaps and percentages and exposure, right? Like, I do think that there's an opportunity to get some nice play out of Elam, but just not overexposing him. And I think if you can just have him help you get through that time period we talked about, Halloween, right? When you think Diggs will be back, when Revel will be back, when, Carson, maybe by the time he's ready to start coming in and play some significant snaps opposite of him. I think that you could really feel good about this situation for a little while, and then allow him to kind of fall back into a kind of a more backup role, which I think he probably fits really nicely into.
The NBA Finals are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action right now. When you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. FanDuel makes betting easy. Whether it's picking your favorite teams or diving into player props from three-pointers to steals, there's so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. You can place that first $5 bet on who you think will win the NFL Rookie of the Year. Travis Hunter is 9-1 to win the offensive award, but 10-1 to win the defensive award as well. I would probably take both of those. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. The Green Bay Packers were one of the best teams in the NFL last year, starting fast, except in the biggest games of the year.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast.
Last year, it may surprise you to learn, the Green Bay Packers were tied for most wire-to-wire wins in the NFL. Games in which they never trailed. They won 7 of their 11 games, wire-to-wire. Never trailed. The only other teams that had 7, Baltimore and Philly. Philly was what ended up being the best team in the league, the Super Bowl champion. By the end of the year, I think they were the best team in the league. And Baltimore looked like, for long stretches, they were the best team in the league. Fell apart in the postseason, but you win games like that, you are expressing dominance. And that was surprising to me when I saw it, because the way our brains work is we latch on. We latch on to the things that go against our expectations. And we have this bias toward the things that are outliers for us in our minds. And so you have the Lions game, both of them really. The Vikings games, both of them really. The Eagles games, the Bears game they lost, they started slow. The answer to, well, just, or like, what can you do to fix that is not, I repeat, is not just start fast. Because there are going to be games where you don't, where you can't, where you get a bad break here, something happens. And it's not that the Packers can't come back. They did come back against the Lions. They did come back against the Vikings the second time. They won games where they were trailing late in the game. And they found a way to pull it out. It's not that, they can only win when they start fast. It's in these big games against the best teams, you just can't expect to go up 10-0. It can't be the only way you can start a game. Now, you would like to have started fast in maybe one of them. But guess what? If you had, you probably would have won. Like, there is a little bit of sample bias here and survivorship bias here, because you have these games that you lost where you didn't play well. And it's like, well, if they would have played better in the games where they lost, they wouldn't have lost them. Well, yeah, no duh. Right? So it's not about going, well, just play better more often, because that's not interesting. They need to do that. But it needs to be, okay, if they take away your first punch, how are you counterpunching? How can you get back on track? And this, to me, when Brian Gutekunst says, I want to see Jordan Love control the game, this is what I think he's talking about. You have against the Vikings, defense makes a great play, interception, and they go down and score, and all of a sudden now you're down 2 scores early in the fourth quarter. Okay, Jordan Love, settle the troops, lead them on a drive, and score some points. It's those moments. And again, yes, that does fall under the envelope of playing well. Yes, you play better in that spot, but it's not just, hey, we didn't start fast, let's play better instead. Yeah, okay, do that. You need situationally those moments where you can lean on something. This is where the Packers not having superstars, especially on offense, comes back to bite them. Because when the Vikings go down 14-0, the plan is get the ball to Justin Jefferson. When the Eagles go down, and the Eagles don't go down early, but if they do, it's, hey, run the ball, Saquon Barkley, let's give him a chance to break one. Let's throw the ball to A.J. Brown. Like, they have dudes who can make those plays. The Packers don't. They rely on mostly Matt LaFleur to manufacture those things. You want them to be able to rely on Jordan Love to make something happen, but he is not, he has not at least shown to date that he can do that consistently. Now, if he comes out firing, he's hot, he's in rhythm. Yeah, okay, great. And the Lions game, the second one, is a great example. Packers had the lead in the fourth quarter of that game. They were down 2 scores at halftime. And they came roaring back in the second half. It's not like Jordan Love can't, lead a comeback by any means. We saw him come back 17 points down in the fourth quarter against the New Orleans Saints. It's not that part of it. Because there's the defensive component here too. When the Packers offense was struggling against Minnesota in US Bank Stadium, the defense couldn't do anything. I mean, they could not have played worse complementary football. In the Vikings game, in the first game, okay, you get a turnover. Could you get one stop, please? One stop would be nice. But they get in these games where they just can't do that. When they start, hey, you go down, you get points right away, let's roll. Now, they did that against the Lions. At home, the first time, went down the field, got points, but situationally, they were so bad in that game. 4 drops on third down, including 1 in the end zone. I mean, that was a lack of execution. They're in these games. It's the situational football. It's the moments where you lack that star power, where the Packers are going to need some guys to step up. Whether it's go-to plays, go-to ideas, or go-to players. And usually you need all of those things. Green Bay has to find ways to win these games in different kinds of ways. It can't just be, we scouted the crap out of this team. We know exactly what to do, and we're executing early. Like, you can't only win when everything is perfect. You have to be able to win when it's a little sloppy, when it's a little ugly. And I'm talking about against the best teams. They beat Dallas. They blew Dallas out. Now, they wanted to give that game away at the end defensively. Joe Barry, thank you very much. But they beat the brakes off that Cowboys team. They fought. They hung in there and fought against the 49ers. And they got some bad breaks in that one too. But then when they need one stop, defense couldn't come through with complementary football. So they have to play better complementary and situational football this year. And that will allow them to win in different ways. It does ultimately end up sounding like you just have to play better. But it's about finding the ways to regain control of a game when you don't start out well. Okay? Because that's going to happen. You can't just fix all of that. So when you don't come out hot, how do you get back on track before it's too late? Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
The New Orleans Saints are already looking explosive with their young quarterbacks.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast.
The New Orleans Saints are starting to look like a big play factory when it comes to all of their, their highlights that they're sharing from OTAs and all those other things. And it's exciting. It's exciting to see with these young players, but it is going to have to be more than just the big play that helps this offense truly improve. It's about consistency and efficiency. So look, the Saints are sharing, clips and things like that. Spencer Rattler throws a touchdown deep down the field to Chris Olave. Then they share one later. Rashid Shaheed's down there somewhere. Tyler Shuck connecting with Rashid Shaheed downfield on a big pass as well. And all that's fine and dandy, but you'll notice as you watch those videos, one thing is missing, and it's a very important thing. Have you spotted it? Do you know where I'm going here? It's the pass rush. No pass rush. It's 7-on-7s, right? These aren't team drills. There's no contact or anything like that. And so I've seen like a little bit of overreaction to the Saints defense is awful and all these other things. There's no pass rush. Like these drills are built to support the offense. This is the NFL, right? The NFL wants offense. This is what they do. So the big thing that I look at when it comes to all of it is that the good news for the Saints and for Saints fans is that if the protection is there up front, the route combinations, the quarterback's arm, the decision-making, the big plays can absolutely be there, but it's going to be more about just the big plays. Let's look at New Orleans versus Philly last year. Not the game, the Week 3 game. We will have some takeaways from that game in this, but I want you to understand from a big play perspective how close the Saints offense actually was to Philly's offense last year. And I know that sentence makes you want to smack me across my face and then check on me to make sure that I'm okay. But let me give you these numbers. The Philadelphia Eagles last year, when it came to 20-plus yard plays, that's what we consider explosive plays in the NFL. Sometimes you'll see sites that consider 20-plus yard passing plays explosive plays, but 15-plus yard rushing plays explosive plays. But typically speaking, and in a more general sense, we just consider 20-plus yard plays to be explosives. And so Philly had a lot of explosive plays last year, 49 explosive plays of 20 or more yards, but that still only tied them for 18th in the NFL. Remember, groups of ties are ranked by where the first place team in that tied group is. So you're skipping a bunch of numbers as you go through this. And so 49, putting them at 18th, not the most insurmountable, not the most explosive team, not the most anything when it comes to that, but still pretty solid, just outside the middle. New Orleans, 47, only 2 fewer than the Philadelphia Eagles, ranked 20th, because there was another team that had also had 47. And for frame of reference, the San Francisco 49ers led the league in this in 2024 with 66 20-plus yard plays, some good that did them. The Minnesota Vikings were at 64. The Detroit Lions were at 62. Those are the 3 teams that were over 60. The Super Bowl winning Philadelphia Eagles were at 49. So not far away from the New Orleans Saints, but still both of those teams pretty far away from those that were at the top. So what does that tell you? It tells you that explosive plays can get you points for certain, but they're not as important as efficiency. Let's go a step further. Well, what about 40-plus yard plays? Well, that's where the Philadelphia Eagles were tied for third. There were 2 teams with 14, and then there were 2 teams, including the Philadelphia Eagles, with 12. So that ties them technically for third. The New Orleans Saints had 8, only 4 fewer, tied for 12th in that situation. There were teams that had 11, teams that had 10, teams that had 9, teams that had 8. And the Saints were amongst a big group of teams that had 8 that pushed them all the way down to 12th. And so the division between these 2 teams last year actually wasn't that far off in terms of explosive plays. And then sort of those double explosive plays, those big 40-plus yarders. I mean, a gap of 4 of those is pretty big, considering that the most in the NFL was 14, though. So that is worth mentioning. And, we can't say that 40-plus yard plays don't win games. I mean, the Week 3 game against the Saints and the Eagles, I told you I was going to bring it up. That game was won because of 2 60-plus yard plays that got the Philadelphia Eagles on the scoreboard. The only 2 touchdowns that they had that entire game came from those 40-plus yard plays. Now let's go a step further. Efficiency, 5.6 yards per play for the Philadelphia Eagles on offense last year, 5.3 for the New Orleans Saints on offense last year. But here's the deal, and this is where efficiency and consistency come into play. The Eagles ran 82 more plays and scored more than 100 more points than the New Orleans Saints. It wasn't because of the explosive plays, a gap of 2. It wasn't because of the 40-yard plays, a gap of 4. It was because the Eagles moved the ball more consistently, didn't turn the ball over as much, 15 and 19, and put more points on the board. That's where Kellen Moore comes in. I made a comment in yesterday's episode that the explosive plays, the big plays, the flashy plays are all good, but the NFL game is made up of 3 to 10 yard gains. And so when you have an offense that will consistently move 3 to 10 yards, I'd say 2 to 10 yards in some cases, that is a team that's probably going to win football games. That is good scheme. That is good coaching, right? Coaching the young quarterbacks to take that which the defense gives them. That's diversity in your offense so that you're catching defenses off guard. That is getting what you can get and doing it on a consistent and efficient basis. That is where Kellen Moore comes in. So could the New Orleans Saints be a big play factory in 2025, even if it doesn't necessarily mean that they're a playoff team? Absolutely. But when they want to build that contender, when they want to be back into considerations and conversations at the ends of seasons, it's those numbers that are going to be most important. 82 more plays, 100 more points, and then the difference of 5.6 and 5.3 yards per play shockingly makes an enormous difference. So for the Philadelphia Eagles, who, look, got some benefit from non-offensive touchdowns as well, we should highlight that, but the efficiency of their offense was off the charts. And in a way that New Orleans, where there wasn't that much difference in explosive plays, ended up having a massive gap, was that efficiency with the Philadelphia Eagles. That's where Kellen Moore comes in. And then he gets to enjoy the big play potential of his quarterbacks in Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shuck, who are just lining up big plays all throughout OTAs. The New Orleans Saints former quarterback Derek Carr, officially his retirement posting on Tuesday afternoon. Going into Wednesday, he did an interview, or at least an interview had a release with Front Office Sports, who does a lot of great work. They do a lot of great work across the whole spectrum of the sports world around the finances of money, sales, contracts, all these other things. Great resource. And one of the things that they spoke with him about was, well, his departure from the NFL, his retirement, whether or not he would look to come out of retirement, where he seems pretty comfortable out on the beach with his kids and all these other things. But one of the big things that this interview kind of highlighted is, why give back $30 million? In case you missed it, when Derek Carr retired from the New Orleans Saints, they had already restructured a $10 million roster bonus, which was already guaranteed by the time that they restructured it, and then a $30 million base salary in order to push some money down the road, open up some salary cap space, all those other things. They made the decision to do that before they knew about, as we understand the timeline now with Derek Carr's shoulder injury and the degenerative issue and needing surgery and all these other things, as we understand what the timeline is said to be at this point, the Saints would have made that decision to restructure his contract right before they basically found out that, like, hey, the shoulder isn't necessarily in the place that it should be, despite a physical at some point, all these other things. So there's kind of all these little pieces to it. Now, here's the thing. When they restructured his contract and then he retired, it kind of put the Saints in a little bit of a bad situation, because it was like, well, they restructured the contract. Now they're not going to get any of that money back. So now they got to eat all this dead cap next year for a player that's not going to play for them this year, so on and so forth. Well, then things changed, right? The tune on that changed when we found out that the Saints were actually going to get that $30 million base salary back from Derek Carr, and that Derek Carr would instead just walk away with a $10 million roster bonus. So the Saints end up in a situation where they're getting $30 million back in some configuration over the course of the next 2 years. That's going to be up to the NFL. the NFL could either give them $1.255 million back this year and then give them the remaining $28.745 million back next year. They could instead kind of break it out and then say, okay, well, it was restructured over the course of 5 years. So you get 1/5 back this year, and then you get 4/5 back next year. In any case, it doesn't matter, right? It's $30 million over the course of the next 2 years, and that is going to be how the Saints will get that money back. So for the Saints, fine and dandy. Worked out great for them, right? They get to move on. They get to close the checkbook on that chapter, that experiment that didn't work. They get kind of a new lease on life when it comes to their financial freedom because of this. They get to turn the page to the young quarterbacks, so on and so forth. But the big question was still looming. Why give $30 million back? I'll tell you, I got the opportunity to work with Derek Carr over the course of these 2 years. Relentlessly nice dude. On camera, off camera, nice dude. But is anybody $30 million nice is always my question. I don't necessarily think that anybody is $30 million nice without some kind of ulterior motive. Now, if you want to prove me wrong, feel free to be $30 million nice to me. I'll take it. But for the Saints, for Derek Carr, this always kind of felt like, I wonder what's going on. And look, we may never know, right? Like, we've openly wondered if there was anything litigious that maybe led to this. All speculation. All of it's speculation. It could very well be that Derek Carr did do exactly what it is that he told Front Office Sports, which is that he simply didn't, quote, want to take the Saints' money. He knew he had to have surgery in order to play. If he was going to have surgery, he couldn't play for the year after they restructured his contract for the money that was connected to that year. If he didn't have the surgery, there was no guarantee he'd be 100% at any point. And so even if he did play, he wouldn't necessarily be himself. And if he did play, it would be much later in the season. And so he just seemingly felt that simply it was the right thing to do and that it was part of the integrity. I think that's a solid story. I think that is an awesome idea. I think that's an awesome story. I think that if that is true, the New Orleans Saints should be absolutely grateful to Derek Carr for the fact that he said, you know what? I don't need this $30 million, which is an insane thing to think about. But it doesn't mean that it's not true. I'm just not so sure I buy it, if I'm being completely honest. And I'm not here to call anybody a liar. I'm speculating. I don't know. I feel like you only do that if it was a part of what needed to be done for the needs of an amicable split. Maybe he just simply thought it was the fair thing to do. Hey, I'm not going to be able to play. If I get this surgery, I can't play. If I don't get the surgery, there's no guarantee I'll be 100% again. There's no reason for me to take this money. It wouldn't be right. Bang. Gives the money back. Totally fine. But man, this really does just feel like one of those things that only happens because there's a certain list of things that lead to it. I don't know what that list of things is. I don't know if we'll ever know the real, truth, honest truth around all this. And maybe that is the truth. If I was the New Orleans Saints, I would say nothing about it. I'd leave it alone. Let him have the narrative. Let him be the nice guy. Leave it be if I'm the Saints. That's exactly what I would do.